This meeting is recorded alert.
Hello everyone and welcome back to Talking Flight Monitor's YouTube channel. If you like the content that you see and hear, press the subscribe button. Don't forget to set your notifications to always so you get the content as it is published. This week we're focusing on week 7 of the PMDG series 737 rebuild support and TFM. This episode is going to focus on the main area of the center overhead. Right now, we will go to desktop. As always, we have the simulator with the 737-900 loaded in the background. We have TFM loaded. We're on our desktop. So we'll open the cockpit panels.
Left 737 cockpit. Panels preview. Aft overhead collapse 1 to 1 level 0.
We'll press the letter C for center overhead.
Center overhead collapse 1 to 1 level 0.
Now, this overhead panel is slightly different than the rest because the main entry in this tree view, even though it's collapsible and expandable, holds the main area of the center overhead. So you won't find it in here.
Level 1 anti-ice 1 to hydraulics 1 to 1 level 1.
Will find
level
it
0 center overhead collapsed
as the center overhead entry itself. Again, there's two ways to access the contents of this panel. The first one is tabbing through. The second one is keyboard shortcuts. We'll tab through it the first time.
Lights grouping. Circuit breaker knob indicator 0 Alt plus D.
Okay, here's a pretty cool little feature. This panel has a circuit breaker lighting knob.
Overhead panel knob indicator 0 Alt plus O.
And the overhead lighting knob.
Circuit breaker knob indicator.
Circuit breaker knob. You can increase and decrease the value. Let's check with
0.
Right now it's at 0, so the lower it goes, the dimmer it is. The higher the number, the brighter it gets. Now to increase and decrease the value, we can press the letter I to increase.
I.
And we'll check with our screen reader.
9.
It's at 9.
27.
Now it's at 27.
31.
It's at 31.
36.
Okay, it's at 36. So
D.
We'll decrease it to 0.
28. D. 3. D. 0.
And there you go.
Overhead panel knob indicator
Anything
0 Alt plus O.
Overhead indicator.
I.
Don't mind the repetitious I's.
12.
It's at 12.
D.
Okay.
D.
We'll decrease it.
D. 7.
At 7.
D. 1.
At 1.
D. 1. D. 1.
And
circuit overhead panel knob indicator 1 Alt plus O. D. 1.
It is at 0, believe me.
Circuit overhead panel.
Zoom is messing around with this. It really should be 0. But anyhow, we will continue.
Emergency exit selector combo box arm collapsed.
Your emergency lights selector. You can use the arrow keys to up and down arrow through this.
Emergency exit lights off. Emergency exit and slash armed light on. Emergency exit lights armed. Emergency exit and slash armed light off.
Okay, the emergency exit lights N slash arm indicator, that basically means is not armed. So this will turn on when it is in any other state but armed. We continue.
Air conditioning grouping. Equipment cooling supply on button Alt plus U.
These are switches, so you could just press the space bar.
Equipment cooling supply off. Equipment cooling supply off. Space. Pressed. Equipment cooling supply on. Equipment cooling supply on.
Tab.
Equipment
again.
Cooling exhaust on button Alt plus X.
There's the equipment cooling exhaust.
Space. Equipment cooling exhaust off. Equipment cooling exhaust off.
Just a switch, so space will toggle
equipment
it on
cooling
and
exhaust on. Equipment cooling exhaust on. Comms grouping. Chime selector combo box off collapsed.
Chimes. So chimes is what they used to call the no smoking sign. You can use the arrow keys to turn it on or off.
Chimes on.
You heard the ding in the background.
Chimes off. Chimes on. Chimes off.
So that way you know it's on or off.
Seatbelt sign combo box auto collapsed.
The seatbelt sign, you can use the arrow keys to change the value.
Seatbelt selector off. Seatbelt selector auto. Seatbelt selector on.
We'll put it back to auto.
Seatbelt selector auto. Indicators grouping. Emergency lights not armed indicator off Alt +1.
And we are at the indicators. Now, as I explained before, this emergency lights N/armed indicator is when it lights up when it's in any other state but armed. So if it's off, it'll be on. And if it's on, it'll be on. And if it's armed, it will be off.
Equipment cooling supply indicator off Alt +2.
Equipment cooling supply, basically. This is the part of the air conditioning unit that supplies cooling to the avionics and the panels and all of that sort of stuff.
Equipment cooling exhaust indicator off Alt +3.
The equipment cooling exhaust is exactly what it says. It's the exhaust that expels the air out of the aircraft once it's cooled down all of the instruments and panels.
Call indicator off Alt +4.
The call indicator, that's on when the call light is pressed.
Pod use indicator off Alt +5.
And the PA system is in use. That'll turn on, say, if the flight attendant is using it as using the PA for announcements. And it is off when it is clear. So that way, if you need to make announcements from the cabin, you can tell if the PA is in use or not.
Panels preview.
Tab
Center
back
overhead
through.
collapse 1 to 1 level 0.
And we're back on the center overhead. Now the keyboard shortcuts for this. Alt B
Lights
is in
grouping.
Bravo.
Circuit breaker knob indicator 0 Alt +D.
Is the circuit breaker knob. Alt O is an
Overhead panel knob
Oscar.
indicator 1 Alt +O.
Is the overhead lighting knob. Sorry about that.
Emergency exit. Overhead panel knob. Emergency
Alt
exit selector
E is
combo
an
box arm collapsed.
Echo is the emergency lights. Alt
Equipment cooling supply off.
will switch on or off the cooling supply.
Equipment cooling supply on.
Alt X is an X-ray.
Equipment cooling exhaust off.
Will turn on and off the cooling
Equipment cooling exhaust off.
exhaust. Alt plus C is in Charlie.
Comms grouping. Chime selector combo box off collapsed.
Will take you to the chimes. Alt plus S is in Sierra.
Seatbelt sign combo box auto collapsed.
Will take you to the seatbelt sign. And Alt 1 through 5 will take you to each one of the indicators. Alt 1,
Indicators grouping. Emergency lights not armed indicator off Alt +1.
Alt
Equipment
2,
cooling supply indicator off Alt +2.
Alt 3,
Equipment cooling exhaust indicator off Alt +3. Call
Alt
indicator off
4.
Alt +4.
and Alt
On use
5.
indicator off Alt +5.
And if you
Panels
tab,
preview. Center overhead collapse 1 to
we're
1 level.
back to the center overhead.
Desktop list.
Close that
Hit.
and go back to the desktop. This is the end of this episode. Again, if you like Talking Flight Monitor or TFM's content on YouTube, don't forget to press the subscribe button. Set your notifications to always so you get everything we publish as we publish it. And we hope to see you in the next episode, week 8.
Meeting controls window.